Hello and welcome to Hexed Countered. My name's Joe. Today I'm going to be beginning my play of Tiger Leader from Dan Verssen Games. So this is actually the second video in the series on this game, and this is part of my Tanktoberfest series for the month of October. So if you would like, a little bit more of an overview of how you set the game up, etc., I would suggest watching the first video in the series, in which I basically go over everything as far as setup goes. And, that way you'll have a better understanding of what's going on here, because I plan on jumping right into the game. So the first thing we do up here, which is a little bit hard to read probably for you guys. So here you can see we did the campaign setup. That was in the first video, everything here. So we're going to be starting our first week. We're going to select our condition card and assign our units. Then we'll be following now with our list here of pre-combat, and we'll do our combat, post-combat, end of week, etc., etc. So as you can kind of see here at the top, we have the terrain, and I'll zoom back out so you can see the whole map. So as you can see, this is our hex map here, and these are just tiles, and you basically randomly select these from the appropriate terrain type, which for our Poland campaign is European, as you might expect. So you have various degrees of cover: heavy cover, light cover, etc. So most of it's open, however. And so we're going to just kind of, the buildings are also heavy cover. So we have two of those. So typically the area up here at the top, and let me slide this down a little bit. You can kind of see this right here. We're going to roll dice to place our enemy forces in these two rows. And then the friendly forces will be in this first row here. Okay, so first thing we got to do, if you remember, and it's a little bit off camera here, but we have to select our special condition card. So this is going to tell us what we've got here, and it says enemy offensive, add 2 to all non-fixed support and non-fixed command operational move rolls. So we're going to keep that here on the side, so I'll remember to do that when we get that. Now we have to assign our units. So I know what units I'm using. I'm going to use my whole force here. And then I'm going to move to the pre-combat phase, which the first step of that is the event card. So here's our event card, and it says proven in battle. At the end of the week, each shaken commander in your command gains 2 XP. And then this is before and after. So this would be before the battle, and this would be, I think, after, although they say the same thing. So basically this card is going to only apply after the battle anyway. We're going to keep that as well off to the side. I put my enemy battalion card. This is the battalion we'll be fighting in this first battle of the week. It's our fast scout force. Over here, we have kind of the areas of the battlefield, ranging from friendly staging, which is that kind of our rear area, and then transit and the front for friendly. And then front, obviously, is the front. Then we have enemy transit, enemy rear, and up top off camera is the enemy breakthrough area. So these two areas, if enemy units end the week in one of these areas, that's bad for me. So I would lose 2 SO points for each battalion that's in this transit area, and 6 SO points for every battalion that's in this staging area. First order of business is kill these guys because they need to get out of there. So we've drawn our event card. We place our turn counter, which I already have on turn 1. We placed our terrain tiles. I've already done that. Now we'll place our friendly units. So I have my friendly units at the bottom. They're not visible. I'll show the cards as things come up that involve the cards. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place all my units. So I'm going to put an infantry here. And I'll put my other infantry here as well. I will put my anti-tank here. And my machine gun team I'm going to put in here as well. There is no stacking limit from what I understand. So we will put our Stug here, Panzer III with the Stug. Then we'll put our Panzer II and our armored car here on the right. Okay, so that's our first move, and now we can advance them as part of pre-combat. So according to the rules, you can move rifle units 1 or 2. You can issue them 1 or 2 move orders. You can issue anti-tank and machine gun units 1. It doesn't say anything about armor, so I'm assuming we cannot move the armor up. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually not going to move anybody, but you can better see here how I've placed everything. So this is my setup to begin with. Now, one thing that I didn't mention is here on the card, they have a speed rating, right? It's right here. That's how far they can move. And then you also have notes in the middle that you can see they get a -2 when moving, -2 attack when moving, and can only use AP at range 0. So they can only attack armor if they're in the same hex with them. And the commander gets a 1 stress point if they move and attack. And stress is typically bad. So if we go to a commander card here, so here on the commander card, you can see stress 0 to 2. So the status is considered okay, speed slow, and then you get the modifiers for the attack roll. So you can see once your stress goes to 3 and 4, he becomes shaken, and his modifiers get to be pretty bad and actually hurt your chances of hitting the enemy. So and you know, each one will have different ratings. Your typical like average. For average, you can see here, he's got a stress of 0 to 4 is okay, and then 5 to 8 is shaken. And his modifiers are worse, but maybe not quite as much worse as they are if it's a green or a recruit. Other things here, you can also see the attack ratings for armor piercing. Obviously, they can only do that if they're at range 0. HE attack is 6. And their range is 0 and 1. So they don't have long range anyway. They're riflemen. That makes total sense. If we were to look at an armored unit, here we have our Panzer III. Our Panzer III here has speed of 1, so it can move 1. Defense 2, it gets a -1 attack when moving. And its armor piercing 7, its HE is 7, and its range is 0 to 2. Now you also have some that can't attack units in the same hex with them, like the Stug here. You can see the Stug's range is 1, 2, so this is a unit you don't want to have be in the same hex as an enemy, because the enemy likely will be able to attack them and they will not be able to retaliate. So now that we've finished that, we need to move to the placing of the enemy units. So before I refocus my camera here we have the enemy battalion card. So this is what we're fighting. As you can see on here, they have 2 half tracks, 2 trucks, and 2 armored cars. So that's a fairly light. It's a fairly light force, and that's this is the chit for that force, 3A, and they are in our friendly staging area. So I need to pull 2 half tracks, 2 trucks, and 2 armored cars. Now, each of the enemy nations in the game has Poland, Britain, France, Russia, or the Soviet Union, and the United States. So you have a variety mix. They all have their own coloring. The Polish have kind of a reddish color on their chits, and I'll show you that here in a moment after I pull them out. Okay, so here we have the area that we're going to be placing. We're going to roll the 10-sided die and use the number here to determine where the unit gets placed. So the unit mix, they have 2 of these. This is the truck. So basically what the counter is telling you here is the corner up there in the upper left, the 1, that is the value of the unit. So it's basically a 1-point unit. They have The dash means they don't have armor piercing capability. The 1 in the black circle is their range, and the 8 is their HE firepower, and the one in the red box at the bottom is their defense rating. So I roll one 10-sided die, and I'll do that off camera, and we get a 6. So we check the 6 against this here, and that tells us it goes in this hex right here, which is actually a good one because it's heavy cover. Okay, so we repeat that with our second truck. And again, we roll a 6. So our second truck goes in the same hex. Now let's look at our half tracks. So half tracks are pretty similar. Oh, one thing I didn't mention, the color of the defense on here, the red box with the 1 in it, indicates that this is attacked by HE fire, not armor piercing. Half tracks, on the other hand, are basically armored trucks, right? So the ratings are identical, except that the defense is in a black box, which means this is an armored target. So we'll roll to place our armored car. He got a 5, so he's going to go here. We have a second armored car. I mean half track, I'm sorry, not armored car. The armored cars are coming next. Our second half track rolled a 10, so that's going to end up over here. And now we have our armored car. Armored cars are a little bit more powerful, a little bit more valuable. You can see they have a value of 2. They have an HE firepower, or rather an armored piercing firepower, is 8. So basically the best way to remember this is if it's black, it's armor piercing. If it's red, it's HE. They have a range of 1. They have an HE firepower of 7 and a defense armored defense of 1. So we roll for our armored car. We roll a 6. So they're here as well. And then for our second armored car, we roll an 8. So the 8 is right next to that. So they're all in the front row, which means they are going to be up close and personal pretty quickly. So now we do the same thing with them. They get unit advancement as well. So again, it doesn't say to move up anything other than rifle, anti-tank, and machine gun units. So I am going to forego moving them up. We're just going to play it that they don't move here in this opening setup. So now we go to combat. The way combat works is that you have 2 types of units, fast and slow. I actually don't have any fast, but here on the card, under the commander, you can see speed, slow. If it said fast, fast always goes before the enemy, and slow goes after the enemy. So basically, since all of my commanders are slow, none of them can go before the enemy unless they play a tactic. One of my commanders has a tactic, and that would be my Panzer III commander Schmidt. And stop auto-focusing. You can see here at the bottom, 1 tactic. So he gets a chit like this to sit on top. And then if I want to use it, I can spend that chit. I'm not going to do that at the moment. So here you can see our battlefield is set up. I've kind of set this up. I need to roll for their movement, but first I need to roll for their aggressiveness because I forgot to do that. So that's a 10-sided die roll. And based on the campaign card here, our Poland 1939 campaign is what we're playing. You can see up here, if I roll a 1 through 8, they use a D6, and a 9-10 uses a D10, and that's to roll on this chart here. Sorry, this chart here, which determines what they do. So since I didn't do anything, I have no fast movement attacks, and I did not elect to use a tactic. It's now the enemy's turn to go. So we roll for the enemy move, but first I need to determine their aggressiveness. As you can see, hopefully, I rolled a 1. So that's going to determine that they're going to use a 6-sided die. So we're supposed to add 5 to all battalion operational move rolls during the first week. Okay, so and rolled a 1, plus 5 is 6. So if it's a tank, anti-tank, or armored car, it would move, advance if cannot attack. Rifle, half tracks, and machine guns, advance to cover. Truck, mortar, anti-tank gun, cautious advance. So what's that mean? The advance if cannot attack, that's pretty straightforward. If they're unable to attack one of my units, which none of them can, they're all ranges of 1, so they basically need to be adjacent, obviously. So they're going to advance, and that only will apply to the armored car because there are no tanks or tank destroyers, anti-tank units here. Advance to cover will apply to our half tracks, so they will move up if there's cover available, which would be true in this case. So we'll move this guy up here. This other one, if he moves, he's out of cover, so he's not going to advance. He's not going to move. And then cautious advance will apply to our trucks, and the armored cars will get to advance as well. So we'll move them up like this. Now the trucks is cautious advance, which means they can move up towards my forces, but not move up, not move into the same hex. So they will move. I'm going to move them both like this. Okay, so that seems to make the most sense to me from a cautious advance standpoint. So that would complete their action. So now we go slow move and attack, which is my units. So I'm feeling that I'm going to leave most of my infantry units here. I'm not going to move them because they have, what do they have? They have 6 units. I have 4. I have several turns left. We go to turn 5. And so I'm going to move all of my my armor up, basically. So we will go here and here, and then I'll move my armored car here, and I'll move my Panzer II here. So the numbers on here refer back to their card. So 393, for example, is my Panzer III. So you can see here the chit. The chit has 393 on it. And the card also has 393 on it. So, all right, so we've moved, and now we can attack. So now, because we moved, we can fire, but there'll be a penalty on it. So these two can both fire at the armored car. So I will let my my Stug fire first. So it's going to fire at the armored car, which is an armored target. So it's armor piercing. So again, if we pull the Stug card here, you can see that it gets a -2 when moving. So we're going to subtract 2 from our attack roll. And its 2 hit for armor piercing is an 8. So it's going to be somewhat difficult for this 2 hit, or a little bit more difficult than usual because we're firing after moving. The commander also would affect that, but as you can see, he's 0 stress, so his status is okay, speed slow, but at range 1 plus, it's a 0. And there's also an attack, there's also a range effect as well. Range 2, you subtract 1. Range 3, you would subtract 2. And range 4, you would subtract 3 from your roll. So looking at this again in retrospect, with my Stug 3 needing an 8, and then having to subtract 2 for moving and 1 for the range, makes it a 3. So I'm rolling a 10-sided die, and I cannot roll an 11, which is what I would need to make an 8. So I am going to forego that attack, and I am going to attack instead with my Panzer III, which has an attack of 7. and only a -1. And that -1 actually gets negated by Schmidt, who is the commander, and he has a +1 at 1+ range. So that negates the -1 for moving. We still get the -1 for the 2 hex distance, but our 393 here is going to fire straight up the spine and attack this armored car. So the way attacks normally work is you roll 2 10-sided die for your units. In this one, if we were attacking at range 0, we'd actually get a third one based on the objective card that we chose, the For the Reich objective card. So I'm going to roll 2 dice, and we rolled a 3 and an 8. So we have 1 hit. So now we roll their defense. Their defense is a 1, so they have to roll a 1, and there's no cover, so they have to roll a 1. They rolled a 5, so they do not defend that, and they are killed. So once you kill a unit, you flip it to its basically smoking wreck side. And so now we can move on to our Panzer II over here, and our armored car. Now the armored car has a -1 when moving, and its commander has a +0, so that won't. So that would be a -1, and it's an 8. So 8 minus, yeah, I'd have to roll a 10. So it's worth trying it at least, but it's unlikely that I'm going to hit. So we'll fire our armored car at that armored car. And if I roll a 10, which I did not, I would hit. Now we'll roll the Panzer II gets a -1 when moving, but it also gets a -1 from its commander, who's green, Weber, or Weber, I guess. And with the -1 for the hex, that would be a 3, so that's going to mean that I can't attack them. So we did kill 1 on our first turn. Now we move to advancing our turn counter to 2. I know you guys can't see it, but I moved it to 2. And now we repeat the process. They get to go first again because I don't have any fast units unless I use a tactic. And it's tempting to use the tactic here for my Panzer III. So I am in fact going to do that. I will spend this tactic chit, which will allow my Panzer III to move up and attack. And our range is now 1. So we get a -1 for the move, and we add 1 back for the commander. So that's a 0. There's no adjustment for the range, so our attack rating is a 7. So we roll our 2 die, and we roll 2 7s, so those are both hits. So now I'll roll a die to see if he defends the first hit. He does not. And he also doesn't defend the second hit, but it doesn't matter. 1 hit kills them. So the nice thing is when you spend a tactic, you can go in the fast move, and then you can also go again in the slow move. So that actually was helpful. So both their armored cars, which are their more dangerous units, the other units are not as effective at fighting, are destroyed. Now we roll our 6-sided die for them. And we rolled a 4 plus 5 is 9. So they no longer have any armored cars, so we ignore this. So HE will advance. So anything with a red, so the half tracks, which are black, so they're not HE. So HE advance means they advance towards the closest HE unit. And this applies to our half tracks. So we have a half track here. He's going to advance here, I guess, because sorry, my hexes are getting messed up here. Our closest HE are here. So these are armored units. So if he moved here, he'd actually be moving closer to the armored units as well as them. So I'm going to go with that being the correct move. And the same thing with this one is we'll move him here. Okay, and then for our trucks, a 9 is advance if cannot attack. So they're not within range of anybody. They're going to have to advance. So they will advance up this way, which is actually kind of a bad move for them. And that will finish their move. I was supposed to do that so that you can remember what they're doing. But so now I will go back to my turn. Obviously, I won't have to move these guys because that's one range right there. And I can use this guy to attack that half track as well. What I can do is move my armored car. And the armored car has a speed of 2, so he can actually move 2 hexes. So I'm going to move him 1, 2. Or maybe what I'll actually do is go 1, 2 and put him here. So he's in cover now. And he'll be able to attack. So he'll attack this truck right here. So we're adjacent. He's got an HE attack because the truck has red 1. So it's a soft target. So the HE attack roll for my armored car is actually a 6. So 6 or better, and we subtract -1 for the attack while moving, and we get no plus from our commander, so it's just a -1. So basically, I'll need to roll a 7 or higher to hit that truck. And I rolled a 4 and a 3, so 2 misses. So now we'll fire our Stug at a truck here. So he did not move, so the Stug is not going to have any penalties. So it's a 5, and there's no impact from the commander, and there's no impact from range since we're adjacent. So we will roll our 2 die, and I rolled a 5 and a 7, so those are both hits. So we'll roll the first die for the defense. This defense is a 1, rolled a 2. That's enough. I actually didn't need to roll the other one, so we're going to say this guy's dead. And now we will roll our Panzer 3. So his HE attack is actually a 7. And he didn't move, so there's no minus. And he also has a +1 from his commander. So we will I think I'm actually going to fire at the half track because that's the more dangerous opponent up there. So we'll fire at our half track. So it's a range of 2, so we're going to get a -1. But we get a -1 with a +1 as well, so they kind of negate each other. So we're looking for a 7. And we rolled a 2 and a 10. Okay, so since we rolled a 10, that's a hit. The 2 is not. Now we'll roll for his 1 defense, which is a 5, so he's destroyed. So they're down to 1 truck and 1 half track. My guys here can't do anything. They're all ranges of 1. So we will move on to the enemy's tactical movement. This time it's a 2 plus 5 is a 7. So we have 1 truck, 1 half track left. So our half track is going to advance again towards an HE target, which I'm assuming that would mean not to move into the same hex with our armored car here. So he's going to move there. And then our truck gets advanced to cover. So he can't advance because there's no cover available. Now you might wonder, why doesn't the truck move into this cover? This move means they have to advance towards my forces. So that would mean this way, obviously, and that's the opposite way. So if they can't move towards me into cover, they just don't move. Although I guess this is cover. That's interesting. Maybe they should move there into the same hex. So now that they've moved, they can attack because they're in range here. So we have our half track is in range, and our truck is also in range. The truck can't actually attack the armored car because that's an armored target. Actually, the half track cannot either. So they basically can't attack because they don't have armor-piercing weapons. So that's a moot point. But their attack, if they had one, like if we flip an armored car over, I gotta find one. The armored car has an 8. Has an 8 here. Trust me. Come on, focus. As an 8, as you can see, So they would have an 8, and then it would be adjusted by terrain and cover and so forth. Or cover, I guess, basically, which terrain is cover. So sorry, kind of mumbling a little bit there. All right, so their move's done. Now we go to our move for the slow units. So let's just see if we can kind of end this thing relatively quickly here. We'll have our Panzer III attack the truck. So no move. It's a range of 1. So he needs a 7. And his commander gives him a +1. So we need to roll a 7 or higher. And we rolled a 9 and a 1. So that's a hit. Now if we roll a 1 here for the defense for the truck, which we rolled a 2. So the truck has been destroyed. And I mean, when you bring tanks and so forth up against trucks and half tracks, things are going to be a bad day for the guy that has the trucks and the half tracks, obviously. So now we'll use our armored car here since it's adjacent to attack the half track. Same thing, didn't move. It's an armored attack, so it's actually an 8. They didn't move and they don't get an adjustment. So we do need to roll an 8, which is not easy, obviously. But we did roll 1. We rolled an 8, so now we'll roll for their defense. They need a 1. He got a 9. So that is going to destroy them. And I think, actually, I kind of messed this up a little bit because I believe once you get down to a certain number of points, they get moved down. So they get moved down when they go to half strength. And then, because if you look on here, half strength is 4, and then 2 is destroyed, basically. So I played it all the way out and destroyed all of them because it's, I guess, a good way to actually show you that. But I did also forget to check what the number was, but it was 4, so they probably would have been wiped out before that. So there you have it. This is the wrap up of this combat. So once we have post-combat, we would apply our event. So at the end of the week, each shaken commander in your command gains 2 XP. Nobody's shaken, actually, so we're not going to actually gain anything from that. Our battalion status, this was their battalion, so this battalion has been killed. I'm going to put that off to the side. So we wiped out the battalion here in our friendly staging. Then we would do commander stress and commander XP. Okay, so as you can see, I updated my log sheet here. So here at the top, we can see the campaign Poland 1939, the objectives for the Reich, 3 weeks. So we're in week 1. We took on enemy battalion 3A. And then we had our commanders in here. So every commander that participates in the battle gets 1 XP point for being in the battle, and additional 1 if you destroy the enemy battalion, which we did. So everybody got 2. Then they have cool numbers, and they get 2 stress automatically for participating in the battle. Battle is stressful, but you adjust it by their cool rating. So anybody with a -1, they get 1 point for stress. Obviously, zeros will have no adjustment, so they're 2. And then Wagner actually has 1, so he ends up with 3. And then down here at the bottom, we put in our start of battle SO points, which was 15 because we had 57 to start the campaign. We spent 42. So we have 15. Plus or minus, there was no change because we didn't have to spend anything to attack enemy areas. And target status, we have X equals destroyed, which is what it was. So we wrote in that. And then you take the victory point for the battalion that was destroyed, which is 1. And we wrote that in here. So we gained 1 victory point from that. And now we would move on to week 2. So, we would clean up our destroyed enemies here and take them off the board. I'll move this back. I'll move my turn counter back. Basically, we reset. So I would take my chits and I'll put them back on the units they go with so that I can start over for the second battle of the week. So basically you want to try to obviously win as many battles as possible while managing the stress of your commanders. So I need to add stress to everybody because everybody's going to have at least some stress. Nobody's at 0. So we have our stress counters here. So these are stress counters. So Eschbach gets 1. So most of these guys get 1, and you can't see it because I know it's off camera. So the first 3 get 1, and then the next couple get 2, and then the next 2 get 1. Well, 1 gets 1, 1 gets 2, and Wagner actually gets 3. So again, now Wagner 0 to 4 for him. So let me pull him up here so you can see. So he's now got 3 stress, but you can see here 0 to 4 he's okay. Once he hits 5 he's shaken. So because he's got a 0, why did I write 1? He's actually got a cool rating of 0. So he's actually a 2, not a 3. So my bad. I had 1 written on the score sheet for him for some reason, but he's actually a 0. So I'll need to correct that and fix him so that he's only a 3 because, only a 2 because that's what he's supposed to be. So now the next thing I would do is set up to play this friendly transit, the unit in friendly transit, which is 4A. So I pull 4A off my deck here, and this is a scout force, so you can see what it's got. 2 tanks, 4 rifles, 2 machine guns, 2 trucks, 2 armored cars. It's actually worth 3 victory points, and if we cut its total power down to 10, it goes to half strength, and at 4, it's destroyed. It's effectively combat ineffective, is what I read that to mean. So we would start over and just go through the whole battle sequence again. So what I am going to do now, though, is I'm going to wrap this video up because I wanted to keep it relatively short, and then I'll do the rest of this week in the next video. I'm probably going to do 1, and then depending on how my stress levels look for my commanders, I might, I stress, push my luck and try to take on the enemy battalion that's here at the front. And then after that, I'm thinking we go after the units at the transit and we start to push up, ultimately hoping we can destroy everything and garner a whole lot of XP here to promote our commanders along the way. So that will do it. And as always, thank you for watching. Please consider liking, sharing, and or even subscribing if you would. That would be awesome and most appreciated. But that will do it. My name is Joe. This is Hexed Countered, and it's Tanktoberfest. So please check in for the next video in this series. And until next time, happy gaming.